Good morning, my friends from the internets. Survive with Knife here again with another blade review. Today we're going to be looking at the SOG Mini Trident. You can see that on there, SOG Mini Trident. I just received this knife as a Christmas gift from my parents. So let's get right into the review here. First of all, the handle scales are GRN with some pretty good texturing on it. It is fairly grippy. Once again, as you guys previously seen in my knife reviews, that I do prefer G10. It is my favorite handle scale material. But this is pretty good. It does feel good in hand. However, like I said, it does not have the grippiness of G10. But the texturing is very nice, and I would say it's attractive also. It looks good. It's a good looking handle. Let me just get close there so you guys can see that pattern. It kind of has a, see if that'll focus, has a pattern to the GRN handle with a little less texturing up here closer to the hilt of the knife, with more aggressive in the middle, and then a little bit less here again on the end. But it does give it a nice, pleasant appearance. The other thing about this knife, and we're going to talk about this later, but is its weight, and that comes down to the next thing: liners. This knife does not have any liners. Let me see if I have my light on me here. I can shine that in there. I don't know if you guys can see that. On the non-locking side, you actually see there's nothing inside except in the back here where the pocket clip's going to attach. There is some metal in there, but otherwise there's no liners, just the GRN handle. And on the locking side, you have the locking mechanism in there, but no liners inside that handle scale. The locking mechanism is SOG's ARC locking mechanism, which is a strong locking mechanism. Has this button here to release. It does make one-handed operation a little bit more difficult, but I have learned to do it. You can see that. I just closed it there with one hand. Not as easy as a liner lock, which is my preference in a knife, but notice that fast, wicked blade. Oh, that's nice. But what I do is I use either this finger or my pinky to depress the arc lock, and then I just press the blade forward and then go ahead and close it. So the function of the knife is pretty easy with that arc lock, and that is a very strong lock. That blade is not going to go anywhere. Also, when it comes to blade play, this knife doesn't have any, which I have a couple other SOG knives, but the SOG Twitch here that I have a little bit of blade play in there, and I was always a little disappointed in that. I have played with the pivot point here, but I've never been able to. If I tighten it too much, then the SOG assisted technology doesn't. And that's one thing I want to show you with this blade here. Notice how if I just let it go, notice how the blade. Let me try to do this. Oh, there it opened all the way. The blade does not fully deploy all the time with the twitch here, which I am. Let's try the back here. If you notice there, it did not fully deploy. Where the Trident here, the Mini Trident, I mean, that is so wicked fast. I mean, you just barely depress the thumb stud there, and that blade just comes out. So when I did get this SOG, I wondered if I was going to have that same issue as I had with the Twitch, but no, it works great. And actually, I've already went into my next, which is the locking mechanism. I already talked about that. Next thing I want to talk about is the pocket clip. Now, this only does support tip-up carry. There is no, and as you guys have noticed in my previous videos, I do prefer tip-down left side. But this is tip-up, and I can move it ambidextrously for left and right carry. I have been actually carrying, when I EDC this knife, since this is not my primary, I usually don't carry two blades, but since I've got this knife, I have been carrying that and my my zero tolerance 301. Been carrying these together, and I've been carrying this in my right pocket. But typically, what I've been using this knife for is I go running 4 to 5 times a week, and usually I carry my gun with me and my Diamondback 380, and I've been carrying this knife, and this has actually served quite well. It is one of the lightest knives I have, and it's also got over a 3-inch blade, and that's phenomenal for sticking into a pair of running shorts or basketball shorts to go running in. You just forget it's there. I mean, you don't even know that this knife is in your pocket. The other thing is the handle spine is completely enclosed. As some of you guys remember from previous videos, I do like these spacers, like on this Ontario Rat 1. So this one is completely enclosed, so it does make cleaning a little bit more difficult. So this knife doesn't have that either, but I still like it. Jimping, okay, let's talk about jimping here. The jimping is actually not too bad. I would probably prefer some sharper jimping. I don't know if you guys can see that jimping there. It is kind of rounded, so it doesn't get as good a purchase as some other knives that I have. It's not as deep, for example, as the Ontario Rat 1 here, or my zero tolerance there. That jimping is actually pretty sharp in there, and gives a pretty good purchase. Let's put that back out there so you guys can see that. The other thing on this knife is this is sporting the one of my favorite mid to upper range type of steel, and that is AUS 8. And as always, it has an absolutely wicked edge, and I have not touched this one up at all. I have done nothing to it, but let's see if I can demonstrate this on camera. Make sure I don't. I mean, that is directly from the factory. No touch up whatsoever. Wicked sharp. Shaves hair on the arm quite easily. I have had quite a bit of experience with AUS 8. Every single AUS 8 blade, the Twitch here has AUS 8 with it. Ontario Rat 1 has AUS 8, and even the K-Bar Dozer. Great little hunting knife there. All sporting AUS 8, all extremely sharp. One thing I've always noticed about AUS 8 steel is I can get a very good edge on. I'm not the world's best sharpener, but I can definitely put a wicked edge on an AUS 8 blade. And it holds it fairly well. And it's a good steel for lower end knives that maybe are not quite as expensive. And I would actually prefer it over 8CR13 MOV. The Chinese steel, even though that's a pretty good steel also. I do prefer the AUS 8 over that. The blade shape, kind of a clip point with a kind of a, I don't know, it kind of swoops up there a little bit, giving a really sharp point, which in my opinion is probably fairly weak. I don't know if you guys can see that. The one thing that makes this knife, as we talk about weight, the one way that they made this knife so light, they did remove the liners, no liners, so that's one thing. The other thing is they made this blade very thin, and that is the biggest downside, I believe, to this knife. I mean, if you compare it to, let's take the Volt from, now this is quite a bit heavier than this knife, but it is basically the same dimensions. And if we look at the blade widths in comparison right here, you can definitely see that Volt has a much thicker, stronger blade on there. And you even take the smaller Twitch, and let's go ahead and compare those. You'll see that it actually has a thinner blade than the Twitch, even though it's a smaller knife. Very, very thin blade, and so I would have to say, with the way that that point comes up, I wouldn't trust that very much. That's has the potential of breaking off, so you definitely don't want to use this aggressively. And I never recommend to use a knife as a pry bar, but definitely wouldn't want to use this knife as that. And that's why I will probably not carry this knife as ever a primary, other than when I'm running, as a primary EDC tactical blade. It just doesn't have the strength in the blade to do that. And while that knife is very light, I'm carrying as my primary a zero tolerance 301. So do I really care that much about weight? Not really. The only time I really care about weight that much is, like I said, when I am running and I don't like a huge knife swinging around and bouncing around in my pocket. This knife here, I don't even know that's in my pocket when I'm running, and I could definitely utilize it in a self-defense situation. If it was pressed into that. Usually I do prefer self-defense blades to have over a 3-inch reach, and this does come in at that, and that goes into the next thing here, blade size, where the length of the blade is just a little over 3 inches, and I'll go ahead and measure that for you guys. You can see it's just a hair over 3 inches from the hilt there. They do list the blade length on their website as being 3.15 inches. Now, going to the actual weight of the knife. This is 2.25 ounces, which is lighter than my SOG Twitch 2, is lighter than the Kershaw Scallion, is lighter even than the K-Bar Dozer. And it's actually, you compare it here, look at the length in comparison. So you're getting a lot of reach and size with the knife without gaining a lot of weight. You compare it here, let me put the Twitch here also. Both of these knives weigh more than this knife here. But this one is long, so if you're looking for a light, very, very light blade, which could be pressed into a tactical because of the length of the blade, this is definitely a good choice for you if you're really into lightweight knives, and some of you guys are. That's just not me. I don't mind the weight. That blade just comes out so fast with that SOG assisted technology, I believe is what it's called. So in that case, usually tactical blades, I think I've talked about this in the past, where I do prefer that they do have our assisted opening, so I have a guarantee of that blade deployment. And that goes into the next part of my talking points here, is blade deployment. This does use the SOG assisted technology, SAT, which, as I said, I was disappointed with that with the Twitch here, but I have no problem with it with the mini Trident here. Ergonomics, the knife does feel pretty comfortable in hand. It does have a large lanyard hole here to easily put in some paracord. Feels great in hand. Is a little short, does come a little short of the palm, but that just comes down to the size of the knife. It's got a 3-inch blade, so it's not going to have that huge handle on it. Next, looking at the knife's roll. Maybe as a small game blade, I wouldn't use this on large game for skinning or processing it. Survival, not really. I don't think this fits into the survival. It's just not a heavy enough blade. Tactical, I guess it could be put into that. This blade more falls into utility and tactical roles, but mostly utility. Tactical if it's pressed into it. Cool factor. I think the blade does look cool, and I think your friends will be impressed when you whip this thing out and you flick that blade out. They're going to be like, oh, wow, is that a switchblade? So it does have that cool factor. And price, it's not too badly priced. It does come in around, I believe, around $50. So there you go, guys. Have a good day.